Okay, hello everybody. Today is January 14th, 2021, and this is the OLM Development Working Group meeting. Looking at the agenda today, which I will now share. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Great. So the first thing that I wanted to provide an update on is the operator framework onboarding documentation that we had promised you in December. So we are currently working on this. I'll add these as we go, but we basically have an OLM user documentation site, and you'll see that at operatorframework.io. And then we're going to have, in the OLM GitHub repository, we'll have a /docs folder where we'll have like OLM dev documentation. And both of these sites already exist, and we're going to be, we're going to continue to fill them out. A task that I'm currently working on right now is examining what's currently available in the OLM GitHub repository in the docs directory, and then updating it to make sure that all the design notes and such are up to date, and make sure that we give you a good experience in terms of like, you should read this document first. We're going to break it down into like, this is the overall architecture. And these are like the different repositories that you might want to get acquainted with and why they're related to OLM. The idea behind that is that our upstream community will then be able to immediately review all the docs in this docs directory and have a firm understanding of the OLM architecture and related repos and a general workflow for how you can contribute to OLM. And these docs do exist now, and I think they do a very high level explanation of the ecosystem and like what our processes are. I think they just need to be revamped to make sure that everything is still relevant and that it's easily digestible. What we hope to have is strong participation in our Slack OLM development Slack channel on the Kubernetes Slack, in which after a user has read through these docs, they can go into the issues, they can see an issue, they can ping us there, and then ask us a few questions. And if the existing docs don't give them enough information, we might ask them like, hey, can you make a contribution to improve the documentation so that other people understand how to do this? And B, if it's not really documentation worthy, we will help you right then and there and provide feedback, if that makes sense. And we can continue to discuss that process, but I think the first step before we do anything is definitely make sure that the docs directory is up to date and fully fleshed out.
So one of the things I noticed immediately, just jumping on the website, there is no obvious link to the Slack channel.
Yeah. So I do have that in the so I have been working on this locally, and in the contributing MD, I do have a link to the Slack channel now. I just need to push that change, right, as a PR. Cool. And I think it'll be really important to, I can come back and link this PR here once I make it, if that is a good way to collect feedback. James?
What do you mean?
So I can, when I push the PR that has, all this information that we're trying to, revamp, we can get some feedback from you and the individuals interested in contributing to OLM. So.
Oh, absolutely. More than happy to have a look through everything. And that PR includes, you said you were adding a Slack thing to the contributing MD and the website as well?
It currently has that, yes. Well, which website are you talking about? The OLM GitHub repository or the operator framework?
Operator Framework.io and OLM.operatorframework.io.
Oh, interesting. So right now, the Operator Framework.io website, we don't have that on there, but we'd probably add a link or something. I'd have to talk to the person who manages that site, but and see if we want to add it there.
At the moment, that points to the GitHub and it points to the Google group. But I'm not sure how much discussion happens on the Google group forum.
The Google group forum actually gets a fair amount of discussion, given that that's how we send out all the emails and stuff. you and the Google group form does point to the, I think all of our sites kind of point all together, right? So if you visit one of them, most of them point to the other ones when it comes to the Google group or the, or the Slack channel or the community page. There is a operator framework / community page where we actually specifically call out how to get involved with each of the working groups, right? Like the OLM, the SDK, and the operator framework community as a whole. But I can definitely like make a note here to make sure that ensured Slack channel is.
Yeah. But if we're going to be trying to push Slack and make Slack where people go with questions and make it active, then we need to push it everywhere.
Yeah. So I'm just going to add to both sites. Yeah. No, that's a very totally fair point. Yeah, so we'll get all these docs set up, and then hopefully the docs themselves will provide enough of a good onboarding process. And then ideally what will happen is, as you know, we could do a recording where we go through like how we do development and stuff. But if we don't have documentation, that recording could very easily get outdated quite quickly. And I think it might be more useful from a long-term standpoint to have to make sure that the docs are in a good state for the the current state of OLM. They accurately reflect that state, and then allow everybody else as they're reading through and be like, hey, this doesn't really make sense, and we improve the documentation there.
100%.
Forward.
Getting that right before making videos and doing a bootstrapping workshop and stuff will make those videos and bootstrapping workshops so much more valuable.
Okay, so I'm just going to add a to-do. Sorry, I'm just updating these notes. Cool. And then link docs PR here. Okay, cool. And so that's basically the next step that I saw with us strengthening our ability to onboard new people into the community. Just make sure that the documentations are accurate and people can read it and immediately start contributing to OLM and have an understanding of where to contact us. So that's the path going forward for now. And I'll put up the PR and we can have a conversation there, whether or not it meets the needs of you guys. And then hopefully we can move forward. Next. So we have been recording all of these meetings, obviously, and we've just created an operator framework YouTube channel, and I've linked that in the agenda. So we have both the operator SDK upstream meetings as well as the OLM upstream meetings. You'll be able to find them all grouped together in playlists. So if I believe I'm sharing my screen, if we click this link, we'll see a set of playlists available. So we have the operator SDK monthly recordings. Zoom in just so we can see things a bit better. We have the operator SDK issue triage. We have the OLM feature planning recordings and the OLM working group recordings. And after every one of our meetings, we are going to take the video and upload it into this channel so that it's available for everyone to see. These are publicly discoverable, so anybody in our group or outside our group can view them, which is why every time before we have a meeting, we make sure to inform you all that you have to turn off your mics and video if you don't want to be recorded. And hopefully this will make it much easier for people to ingest the information that we're recording in these meetings and start contributing to the project in the future. Pretty great. All right. And the plan is that, well, what my hope for it is that we can eventually include demos and other stuff like that as new features become available, so people could see real live use cases of OLM in action. So please check out the channel, and if you want to ever see anything added or changed to it, just reach out to us on the OLM Dev Slack channel on the Kubernetes Slack. And we've already introduced Dan before the meeting recorded, and now we've gotten into the questions from Chris. So Dan, do you want to lead this portion?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do that. I know that Chris has a number of things on the agenda, but I was wondering if we could jump to Ankita real fast and talk a little bit about the upstream downstream split before we go into the technical details. from Chris, because I think that's a topic that is going to be really helpful to everyone on the call if we have enough time to sort of explain that. So, Ankita, are you ready to give a brief update on that?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. I just want to talk a bit about the upstream downstream split that we've been working on. So right now, I think everyone might know that OLM, the OpenShift, is still depending on the operator framework OLM repository to do its build. So there are restrictions on what makes it into the OLM code base. And so we've really needed the split for a while now to decouple operator framework from the OpenShift development cycle and its release dates. So after some discussion, the solution that we decided on was to split the code base into a set of upstream repositories that currently already live in operator framework and a downstream monorepo that will exist in OpenShift operator lifecycle manager. So how the upstream build process won't change much. All that will happen will be that we would have a new downstream monorepo living at the GitHub OpenShift repository. I mean, the OpenShift organization, which will have staged subrepos of all of the upstream repositories. And the development will still be focused on the repos that exist in the operator framework org. The downstream repo will just cherry pick the commits that we push to upstream, and our builds will still, all we're actually going to end up doing is to switch the build repository from the upstream to the downstream one. In the initial version of the split, we'll still have a lot of OpenShift specific build files associated with the upstream repositories, but this will be removed little by little. So the final goal will be to have the upstream repositories free to for contributors to make changes to without needing mandatory input from Red Hat or OpenShift, to be honest. So we can go into more detail if anyone has questions.
I guess just quickly for my understanding, so what kind of a cycle would there be between seeing things in the downstream version from the upstream? Is that like a month delay or on some other cycle? Do you know what that would be?
We will be pulling in changes from upstream for every release or for every patch that goes out. So it would largely be dependent on the normal OpenShift release cycle. So that would be, I suppose, it would still be around a month.
And Kita, don't you have a document that kind of highlights the logistics of stripping or separating the upstream downstream repositories for OLM?
There is a document for the enhancement itself, and there was also a document that was about the release cadence that Kevin was working on.
Do you mind if I add two tasks where we just link those, where you circle back and you link these so that people can review those?
Sure.
Great. And then release cadence document. Yeah, I just think this information is going to be really important for the upstream community to have access to. So we should get that in front of them.
Right.
Cool. And I just want to iterate, Ankita, that I think this work that you have been doing to facilitate the split of the upstream and downstream, repositories is going to be really, really great. There's a lot of, we constantly have situations where we want to like accept a bug fix from an upstream member, but because of a code freeze, we aren't able to get it into the existing repository in a appropriate amount of time. And with this split, it will really open up our ability to deliver, or to accept these external contributions at any point. So really solid effort here. I'm really excited for this change.
I am too. Thanks.
Cool.
Thanks, Ankita. So now that we've introduced that, let's move along to the next item on the agenda, which was with respect to default channels.
Do you want to share your screen, Dan? So I'm not.
Yeah, I can share my screen. Okay, so this issue has been open since May. I'm looking at it, and I also had the same question. I think it's very valid to ask, why does a bundle need a default channel defined in it when the default channel is more index level construct. And so I see that we've had some conversation on this, and this was slated to be introduced in 4.7. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the latest status of this is. I don't know if this is part of the OPM management epic that was, okay, 4.7, so for 4.8, so set to be delivered in 4.8. It's definitely not being delivered in 4.7. I'm also looking at our upstream milestones. So for the next release, 0.18.0, I don't see this issue as being part of that upstream, that 0.18 milestone. There's only 4 issues in here, and the only one that's open is this one, which involves basically the fix here is to add some documentation. So I guess one question I have is, I guess Chris isn't on the call, but do we feel like this issue is something that we want to add to the 0.18 milestone?
I think we can provide. Oh, sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I just would like to have some more info on this thing. I have to go read it. Sorry. I thought we might have fixed it already with the way we handle selecting channel info.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. So if you just want to talk about that change, then go ahead.
Yeah. So essentially, now when you add something in replaces mode in the master OPM branch, what happens is we look through a package for the largest possible semver value, and that thing defines the package metadata of the catalog. So I'm trying to match it up to this. Maybe Evan, if you wanted to fill in the details, because I haven't read this in a while.
Yeah, the concern from this one was the previous behavior was that the most recently added bundle would rewrite the default channel, which was really annoying if you were trying to rebuild a graph from some set of bundles that you have, and they get added in a different order, some sort of like promotion process between stage or prod, something like that. And so the new rule makes it so that you don't have to worry about order, because you can very easily reason about what the default channel will be. It's whatever the default channel that's defined on the highest semver version in the package so far. And then all of this gets better with the declarative index config that there's an enhancement open for right now, so that you won't have to worry about specifying this per bundle anymore. But for now, we still have it.
So just to make sure, for my own understanding, so the original concern was that the most recently added bundle would rewrite the default channel. And then with the new rule, or in master right now, what was this about finding the highest version in the package?
Okay, so I'm sorry, this is Will. I thought I commented on this already. We discussed this a while back, hence the May the 15th of 2020. The original problem is we require default channel information on the bundle. That was the default behavior. So that's why when you adding a bundle, and anytime you add a new bundle, whatever default channel setting on that bundle will become the new default channel. And that was not really a good way to doing that. So we already dropping the default channel requirement on the bundle. So if you do not wish to changing a default channel, you should not adding a default channel on the bundle at all. So nowadays, if the default channel is not specified on the bundle, we will be reserving the existing bundle, existing default channel on the index for that specific package. So that was one way to fix this problem. And as Nick and Evan already pointed out that we're having the way to do batch at this day to figure out using sample and replace information to select which one is the highest, assuming that will be the latest, and using the default channel in that bundle if specified to become the new default channel. So
Well,
we're having two different ways to resolve that.
I mean, we're not just assuming that it's the latest. We're the heuristic is specifically that package level information, or that the default channel comes from the highest semver. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the that is what ends up forming the graph, but it does mean that that's where the package level information comes from.
And when is that going in then? Or has that already gone in?
That's in OPM.
That's
now.
only in both the fix, yeah.
So does that mean that?
What version of OPM?
Master 1.15.3, I believe, as well.
Okay, thanks.
So Nick and Vu, I'm trying to reconcile both of the things you said. So on one hand, I'm hearing the default channel always comes from the highest semver, but then also you don't have to specify default channel. So what does it mean if the highest semver bundle doesn't specify default channel?
It will reserving the existing default channel that currently in the index.
So that means that really what the rule is the bundle that contains the default channel, that's all. The highest bundle, the highest semver bundle that contains the default channel will define the channel for that package. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do we document this anywhere?
The default channel become non-optional. I mean, become optional. I'm sorry. Is on the doc, I think. The new patch add that Nick just mentioned. I'm not sure if we add anywhere yet. Nick can answer that.
Okay, but would you mind just following up and making sure that we have a link to this in the doc and that the doc exists?
And
I know it's in this CLI description. So if you do like a help text, I know it's there.
Got it, okay.
And I feel like someone on our team mentioned, maybe it was Chris, that wasn't supported or breaks in like 4.5 or 4.4, I guess maybe 4.5. That doesn't always work to not have a default. Is that a true statement, or?
I know there are older versions of OPM that will require that the default channel be set. But if you're using a newer version of OPM, you're adding bundles to an index for like 4.4 or 4.5, that should still work fine.
Yeah, this is strictly on. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Joe.
As a corollary, if I guess there's another case where if it's optional to define a default channel on a bundle, then it's possible for none of the bundles in a package to define the default channel, which would mean that there is no default channel? Is that also a valid state, or is there some way that that's
Yes.
That is not a valid state. You can't have, the only time you can have that is when you only have one channel.
Yeah, so I can answer to that. That is correct. You need to having default channel. Default channel information on the index is required. And I can see Joe gonna say that anyway, because we did discuss it, Joe, when I passing the PL route to you, and we have quite a lengthy debate on this. And I originally wouldn't want to do this, but eventually I did that. Whatever channel that been specified on the first bundle been added will become default channel until it's been changed later on.
Got it. So the very first bundle has to define default channel because something on the entire package has to have a default channel. From then on, you go with the highest. It's optional, and you go with the highest SIM for one that defines it.
Yeah, so if you specify default channel on the first bundle, obviously that default channel will be setting in the index. Even if you don't specify that, it will select the channel that you're listing on the channel list to become a default channel.
And if there are multiple channels in the channel list for the one bundle?
It will order the list on the alphabet and pick the first one.
Got it. So
that was not the behavior I want, because I wanted to be a bit more determinist. I mean, I wanted to be a bit more under control, that the user setting instead of we choosing. But we decided to, I think you and me both agree that we prefer not to having the command to be error out by some issue like that, and the default channel can be always changed later on. So that's not the issue. If we pick the first one because it's the first one, so it needs to having default channel on something.
So
I would second Alex's thing about adopting, because over the last 10 minutes, this has gone from, oh, that sounds pretty simple, to, oh, there's a bunch of interesting corner cases.
Yes, I think we having doc on the develop side, I think, and also on the command line, but not on the website. So we will get that up there.
So did I also understand that there's still a new feature coming where there'd be like a flag where you can explicitly set the default channel, where it doesn't have to be existing in a bundle in the metadata?
I'm unaware of any plans to do that.
At the moment, I think we didn't. I think they just said that we had no plan to adding a new flag on the OPM to actually doing this, even though I think that was the original intention from the issue from Chris. It's just because we only have quite a few flags already, and adding a new flag into it is only like the command become more verbose and really not helpful. We would like to having a bit more comprehensive and a bit more generic way to fix it. And I think Evan can talk a bit more. I'm not really in the deep discussion on this, but hopefully the configurative index will be able
Joe, were
to
you
solve
talking
some of
about
this.
the declarative index that was mentioned earlier?
That's what I was trying to understand. I'm not sure I know what that is.
Oh, what we mean by that is simply a way for you to declare upfront in a file or in some directory structure exactly the content of your catalog, so that you can focus on a more GitOps driven development process around these catalogs instead of a more imperative experience with a command and different discrete additions and removals and edits. It's just going to be a file or a directory structure perhaps that defines the exact content.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that helps a lot. I'm just wondering, I'm sorry, James, is it true that, I mean, like, do you always want the highest semver thing to be the default channel? Like if you were talking about, an EUS release, which might have lower semvers than.
That depends on on how you're doing things, because with our EUS releases, we're not relying on using the default channel because we can't. So for the EUS releases, we've reserved Semver ranges so that we can do dependencies based on a range of versions that we know are the EUS stream. It means that it doesn't matter what channel is the default, one of the EUS stream will be picked up, and that will therefore have the EUS channel. For me, I don't think we particularly care. I kind of feel like the declarative index, in whatever form that comes out in. I haven't looked at that one recently. I need to go and have another look and see what's happening with that. Is more useful, because the idea of having a catalog that we're kind of maintaining by adding and removing bits unstable compared to having a catalog that's built from a kind of a declarative list. But to the original question, I can't see any problem with the default channel being selected as the channel associated with the highest Semver bundle.
Okay, just wanted to double check there.
Okay, so going back to the issue on GitHub, do we feel like we're a place where we can close the issue? Do we want to add the issue to the 018 milestone and then close it, or how do people feel about?
I would say stick a comment on it saying we think it's fixed with this, and let Chris have a look, because he might have an opinion as well, and he is the one who makes the issue.
Okay, and I think regarding documentation, who you're going to follow up to see where the documentation on that lives. Hopefully we have.
Yeah, Nick and I will sync up on that.
Okay, great. So I think if everyone is comfortable with that issue, we can move on to the next topic, which was status of developer bootstrapping workshop. Chris isn't on the call. Does anybody want to talk about what that is?
Yeah. So hi, Dan. This is related to our onboarding of, onboarding of new contributors to OLM. I don't think we really need to. Ideally, what will happen is the documentation is so good and our Slack channel is so responsive that people don't need a recording for onboarding purposes. We'll see if we can get there. It might just be a need that we do host a meeting like this upstream, where we just run everybody through, and then they attack the existing documents and contribute to it if they have questions there. But we, obviously based on our conversation earlier about the development documentation improvements that we're trying to make, this would be more of a fallback if that isn't sufficient.
What I kind of see it as, Alex, as well as that, is from what you were saying about updating the doc, I think if we can do that first and then try and get a bunch of people looking at it together, and new people who don't have experience, that's going to be a really good way to make sure those doc changes are good and make sure we catch anything in them that needs sorting out. So I think let's try and do both for good reasons on each side. If you see what I'm saying.
So you're suggesting that in addition to the docs, it would be useful to have a
session where we get a bunch of people to try everything out, right? And we can do that as a bootstrapping type exercise where we get a bunch of.
I see. So what you're suggesting, if I'm getting this right, is that we make all the doc changes and then we get a bunch of people new to OLM and we try and get them to do something, and then.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think that just doing a bootstrapping thing doesn't make sense, because that just helps the people who were there, right? And you can go back and look at the videos, but like you say, things change so quickly. Getting the doc right and then doing a bootstrapping workshop will help us test the onboarding process.
Right. No, that's fair. Yeah, so I can't commit right now to a full hosting a meeting where we do this for an extended period of time, because I just don't know what that will look like. But I think what we certainly have to deliver is an improvement to the docs. And then if we could have some guys go through that and in the Slack channel, give us some feedback. And if it becomes adamantly apparent that we simply aren't in like we need like a bootstrapping
Yeah,
session.
I mean, Chris is talking about it as a workshop, right? And that kind of makes it sound like a big thing. I think it's more of this is the life of a bug that goes through the OLM process. This is the life of a PR that goes through the OLM process. So if you've got an idea, then do this, right? That kind of.
Yeah, that's fair. I can even, yeah, okay. I will I'm going to bring this internally and we're going to discuss how we could facilitate something like that. It could be something as simple as like, hey, I have a bug and I'm going to be in office hours for OLM. And if you jump in, you can see what I'm doing and I'll talk about it. But we'll talk about this and we'll figure out what we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Just anything collaborative and useful. Yeah.
I think there was also a little bit of thinking that there would be, for people who are new to the code base to actually get a tour of the code base also, to see what's where, what kinds of things do we need to know about, what, just kind of, give a high level overview of the way things are laid out.
Absolutely. And that's something else that should be in the documentation and then might be nice to do a quick walkthrough.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I just want to note that this would be a great forum to do something like that. We're all here. It's a relaxed environment, so we can incrementally build on these asks just as we go through as we go through the working group meetings. But you're right, as you said, we'll discuss that more internally and try to figure out what we can really deliver. So last on the agenda is status of 2 PRs, 1864, 1817. I'll share my screen real quick, and we can take a look at those. So this is 1864. Generate lowercase subscription. Yep, go ahead.
I can talk about this. I think I and Chris put this up here. So we have we created like 2 PRs, like 2 small PRs one for a bug fix and one for a unit test or the E2E test enhancement. So I just wanted to check if I see. I just wanted to see if somebody has a chance to review this. I also noticed that the end-to-end test failed, but I tried to run it locally and it didn't pass. So I just wanted to see if I broke something, if somebody could provide me some help on how to fix it. I thought that would be great, but I just saw like it has been reviewed.
I think Nick just commented on this actually.
Right.
Yeah, Nick's not been focusing on the meeting. He's been looking at your PR instead.
I was looking into it as well, and I need commenting on first because I think the fix is the intended, but I think he fixes on the test, not the actual code that actually functional. So it's missing out.
Sorry, what was the kind of bit once more?
There's also a way to run the end-to-end test locally. We have a separate kind of, again, undocumented makefile that Ben Liddy worked on that lets you spin up a kind cluster in essentially the test process. So you can run the end-to-end test there locally on your machine, so long as
No, actually, I did run the end-to-end test locally. I just marked some of them as with the focus test, like the Ginkgo F win, because I think the whole thing takes a really long time on certain test timeout. So I did run those ones which are failing in this PR locally. They seem to pass, but like I said, if somebody can just take a look and see if anything needs to be done, that would be great. I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll take a deeper look. I also okayed this to test, so it will run through OpenShift's test suite, which is a little bit more robust. And we can see if it's actually something that changed about the subscription name that's causing test expectations to fail, or if it's just, something is wrong with the test.
Yep.
And there's one more PR, right?
Yep.
That one actually adds a scenario for hot fixing a CSV to the E2E test.
Right. So this was the test that you had added to make sure that the hot fixing method still works in the future. Like this is our guarantee that we continue to support. If you installed an operator, you can modify the CSV and change the behavior. Yeah. I think this looks great, by the way. I did add a comment to it recently. So in this code, we fetch the CSV here. One thing I might recommend doing is waiting for the CSV to reach the succeeded state like you're doing, but then basically do an eventually loop so that you get and update it as one continuous process, because there are instances where even if you fetch the CSV, something else might have modified the CSV between the time that you get and update the CSV, right?
Okay.
And so you might want to add basically make this check where you do the get and update commands as a eventually loop so that they constantly get the latest version of the CSV before you modify it and then update it. Otherwise, our E2E suite can just fail because some other controller comes by and modifies something unexpectedly.
Sure. Yep. That's a valid thing. Yeah. Thanks. I'll do that.
Yeah. It might not be a huge issue since the CSV is in a succeeded state, but it can happen.
When the test suite takes 45 plus minutes, anytime eventual consistency could cause, optimistic consistency can cause a failure like that to be really grueling.
Yeah. Just going back to the request of like a live workshop, this is also a totally valid use of this working group meeting, making PRs and then us commenting on it in real time like this and giving feedback, and then just sharing like some of these best practices that we've kind of noticed. So please, if you think you don't have anywhere, if you're worried about like not knowing what to do, just like start doing it. Reach out on the OLM dev channel, ask questions, tell us where our docs fail, make PRs, help us improve the docs, and then we'll help you get your PR to the point that it's merged.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, great. I don't see anything else on the agenda for today. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to bring up?
Yeah, this is Joe again. Just one quick question on the declarative index piece. When did we think that was going in? Is that a 4.8 kind of a thing, or?
Yes, I think Kevin or Evan can speak to this more, but from what I understand, it's one of our highest priorities for the upcoming 4.8 release.
Yeah, we're attempting to track that for 4.8. That being said, like anything we're tracking for a release doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get in for that release. It just means that's what we're aiming for. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Looks like we can wrap up, Alex.
Awesome. Well, thanks for everything, guys. It was a great conversation, and we will see you all next week at the feature planning meeting.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much.